What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Empowered Athlete Podcast. I am so excited to bring this guest to you today, Miss Megan Jimenez. She's based out of Georgia, a little bit outside of Atlanta. Megan Lisset Jimenez is a fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeon who specializes in sports medicine. She's a certified Ringside doctor and Jiujitsu purple belt. She finished her 14 years of schooling in 2019 and has been practicing orthopedic surgery for almost 2 years now. She's currently works for Emory University and is an assistant professor of orthopedics, which is amazing. She's been involved in martial arts since she was 5 years old, starting in Kenpo to amateur boxing to Muay Thai and to ultimately Jiu-Jitsu. And she's been training Jiu-Jitsu for 8 years, and I'm excited to announce that she is the 2021 Master World Champ at Purple Belt. So that is such an amazing accomplishment. And recently her focus has gone to recovery and cross-training, as well as diet, meditation, and mindfulness to round out her life as a surgeon and athlete. And you guys know where we're going with this, right? This podcast focuses on the holistic perspective. So I'm so excited to have Megan on here today to really share her journey, her experience, and ultimately what got her to where she is today. So we're going to be diving into her story, her personal development journey, because that plays a huge role in a lot of the shifts that she's experienced that ultimately supported her in becoming a world champion. So it's definitely important to mention. And also just allowing her to share her wisdom as an expert in sports medicine. So welcome, Miss Megan. I'm so excited that you are here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm pumped about this. Let's get it going.
Yeah. So of course, I first really came into contact with you when you joined our free challenge group. And I know that one of my dearest students and friends, Devin, is I believe the one who kind of was like, do this push-up challenge. And I'm known for the push-up challenge. And so that's why we upped the stakes. And we were like, for anyone who's a veteran, you're doing 200 push-ups a day, not 100 push-ups. But I understand that you got the wrong message. And I think this was your first time doing the challenge, but you're like, I'm doing 200 anyway. And I was like, yes, I love this girl. And your motivation was super inspiring. And I love to see women going after it and really pushing the envelope versus doing the bare minimum. Right. But being like, oh, what am I capable of? Right. And I saw that in you right away. And I was like, I like this girl. So that's kind of where we first came to contact. And lo and behold, we are on this podcast. So I'd love for you to start by telling us more about your background, what motivated you to pursue a career in sports medicine, and what got you started in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that push-up challenge because it's pretty funny. Devin called me out on it probably day 3 of the challenge. And I think I had seen her doing it, but I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that challenge. And, you have a million things going on in life. And then she called me out on Instagram and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'm not going to substitute it for anything else I'm doing, right? All my other routines and my things. I was like, I'm just going to add it. And I quickly breezed through your post and I saw 200. Like that's the number that stood out at me. And I was like, all right, bet, let's do 200 push-ups. And I did 200, tagged Devin, and she was like, what are you doing, you lunatic? It's 100. And, I could have easily said, okay, fine, I'll just start doing 100, but I said, well, I already did it. So let's go. And like by day 3, I'll tell you the first 10 push-ups, I was sore. Like, I was like, how am I going to get 200? But I kept it going. And then by day 14, it was like, oh, it's just 200, And so I actually got a bunch of other people doing it too, like not posting or anything, but they would text me every day. Like I did my 100 and I had some people doing 2. So I just, the power of the mind and just telling people you're doing it, I think then you go fucking do it. And that was the push-up challenge for me.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I love that's the purpose of these challenges is those who kind of immediately are in the group, get access to those challenges. But when that word spreads, how many women, in a way are empowered to realize I didn't think I was capable of 1 push-up. And now I'm pushing myself to do 100 or maybe even 200. And like you said, it's the power of the mind. We are able to do and perform at the level at which we allow our minds to believe we can. And so the more we expand our capacity and our belief in ourselves, the more we unlock what's available to us. And so
I would have days where I would have like 50 left. And I would go, I teach the women's class at my gym sometimes. And I would go text them all and be like, I've got 50 push-ups left. And, everybody's whining and complaining. And then at the end of class, we would bow out. And I was like, oh shit, I forgot the 50 push-ups. And everybody legit 15 women would just drop down and everybody would do 50, like no more complaining. And I was just like, whoever wants to do it can do it. And then I started doing it and it was just the whole class, so that was really cool to see.
So good. And, that is ultimately, being that leader and walking the talk and being a leader is really, really important in the sport and what a lot of women are seeking in the sport. So I really honor you for taking that role and being that example. So that's amazing. So I'm so glad that you had a little thing to say on that push-up challenge. So those who want to join that challenge, you can join that group, and we offer different challenges all the time. We do our push-ups annually. So check us out next year for the push-ups, but join us this year for what we have to offer you. You got to join the group to find out. But yeah, so tell us a little bit more about your background and what got you into sports medicine and ultimately what started your jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah. So actually I was, when I was 4 or 5, my mom, she is, more of a girly girl, likes the bows and the dresses and the frills. And I am not. So she put me in ballet, the tutu, the whole thing. And there's a video of me in my first recital, just sitting there, just pissed, arms crossed, not wanting to do anything. And my whole family's there, I'm Cuban. So there was like 20 people probably there, and they're all just yelling at me in Spanish and English to dance. And I ended up, I think it was kicking my ballet teacher because she was trying to get me to dance and I just had wanted nothing to do with it. And so there was a karate studio above the dance studio, and my mom and my grandfather were like, well, let's just put her in there. And I started Kenpo and my journey there, which was great. It was a karate. It was very organized, the punches, the forms, the katas, but it taught me a lot of discipline. It taught me confidence. It taught me, that there is a little bit of a hierarchy too in the world, and you have to respect to be given to you. So it was good. It just gave me that, going out into the world, especially as a young female teenager, all the hormones going and everything happening, and like, oh yeah, I could kick some ass. And it gives you that little extra confidence, to know that you can, but you won't. And that's what it taught me. And I earned my black belt in that, my second degree in that. I was teaching as like a 14-year-old kid, teaching adult classes. And so that taught me how to teach, I was having that anxiety and stress built in as a young kid. Like, okay, you're teaching this group of 20, 30 people that are from age 12 to 60. And it was like, all right, how does a 14-year-old come up with that? But I figured it out with help, seeking guidance and mentors. And then I went to college. I amateur boxed. I went to school in LA out at USC for undergrad. So they didn't have, I didn't know of jiu-jitsu or anything like that. And they didn't really have a karate form so I found boxing and I started boxing amateur. I competed a little bit in college, but realized getting hit in the head wasn't really the best for where I wanted to go in life. Because I wanted to be a doctor. I wasn't sure what type yet, but I always was fascinated with surgery, and I can look at blood and I can handle that stuff very well, which a lot of people can't. So I then went to medical school, started doing different shadowing opportunities, was on the sidelines of different sports and athletics, football in particular. And I had one of my mentors who is actually one of my mentors now. He's the head of the Association of Ringside Physicians, and he got me into that. And so he's a non-operative sports physician. So he doesn't do surgery, but somebody blew out their ACL on the field. And I was like, oh, what are we going to do about it? He goes, well, we're going to send it to the surgeon. And I was like, oh, that's going to be me. And that was kind of it. And I was like, all right, I don't want to be the one sending it. Like, I want to take care of these athletes when they have ACL injuries. I want to take care of shoulder instability. I want to do all these cool things. So, then orthopedic residency. And actually when I started, or medical school, I kind of found jiu-jitsu, dipped into it a bit, but with school, it was, school comes first. And so then residency started, and I'd have times where I could go in and out of jiu-jitsu. And so started as a white belt, actually got injured one of my first months because I didn't tap and I was going with another white belt, very dangerous situation. Had to have shoulder surgery because of that. My whole family saying, you're not going back. You're an orthopedic surgeon. You need to be an orthopedic surgeon, and you can't be doing this silly shit, is what they would call jiu-jitsu. And I just had a love for it off the start. And my surgeon, after a couple of months, was like, all right, go back to jiu-jitsu. And I didn't feel ready yet. So I took a couple more months, really strengthened the shoulder, went back after it, and I haven't stopped since. And that was probably around 2014 or so, 2015, I guess, after the injury. And what I learned from that was, you tap fast, you tap often. And that is what my coach my coaches have always told me, and I learned that lesson the hard way, unfortunately, two white belts being paired together.
Yeah.
I'm very careful now watching two white belts go after it. I try not to let it, if it is, I make sure I'm keeping an eye and I'm like, all right, no, like you're tapping or, because it gets very dangerous and very tricky and everybody doesn't realize how important it is to tap. So that was my early, early lesson from that. So now I probably tap too soon, but it keeps me safe and it keeps me on the mats the next day.
Yeah.
So that's my journey. And then I guess sports medicine, I did a fellowship after my residency at WashU in St. Louis. And that kind of just came with it, being an athlete my whole life, loving to care for athletes, loving to see athletes get better. It kind of just went hand in hand. And a lot of orthopedic surgeons do have a history of some kind of sports in their life. It tends to be seen as like the jockey male. And women orthopedic surgeons are in the teens of the percentages right now of orthopedic surgeons. So just like jujitsu, it's I've always been involved in things that are male dominated, and I like kind of coming in and bringing that chaos into their world and showing what we can do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really, really honor you and love that you like have that firsthand experience when it comes to that white belt, because that's one of the alarming things that makes me so passionate about what I do and what I teach is I see an alarming amount of these, high grade injuries like ACLs and shoulders for white belts. I'm like, guys, there's something missing here. Like, obviously there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. There's nutrition, there's recovery, there's effective and efficient training and tapping often, all of that stuff. But I think the missing piece, in my opinion, is the gap of people being educated on these things so that they're not getting into that position. Because as a white belt, even though you might be gung-ho, like I was gung-ho when I started as well, just like you, we were hooked from the start. There's still a potential to want to pull out and that fear to come in if you experience something like that, especially if you weren't a lifelong athlete. I myself was a lifelong athlete, started martial arts at 7, and that was kind of the same thing, developed the discipline, but not everybody's like that. And so it's important for us, if we desire to spread jujitsu to as many people as possible, which is one of my missions, because I think it is so important for everyone to learn, they have to kind of be empowered and taught how to be preventative so that they have longevity in the sport. So they're not embarking on these, injuries that can be really debilitating and maybe even put you out of commission.
Yeah. And let's be real, it's a dangerous sport, right? The injuries are going to happen. If you're training, it's going to happen. But how do we mitigate it and make it less? How do we practice safer so that everybody can show up the next day and you're not out for weeks? The recovery thing, I know we were going to talk about that later, but just kind of jumping to recovery, I've just realized the importance of recovery myself probably last September. And how important that is. And you know what? I can get back a lot quicker now. If I have a little neck injury or whatever, I shot for a double leg and my neck kind of tweaked, which is often where it happens for me because I tend to get aggressive. I go jump in my pool, which is about 30 degrees right now. I do that for a couple minutes. I get a massage. I stretch. I get on my inversion table. I do all these things. I have a heating pad. And then the next day, guess what? It's gone. And I'm ready to go again. In the past, I would have woken up with my neck crooked and I would have said, all right, well, I have to train today. And then it's 3 weeks of my neck in pain, not sleeping. And now I can just get on the bed, like get back after. And if I take a break, I take a break. And it's just a lot quicker breaks now versus in the past, if I had an injury, I'd be out for weeks because I just didn't know what to do with it.
Yes, this is such an important conversation because so many of us like have this guilt around like if we get injured and we have to show up anyway because we're going to be behind. But what we don't realize and what we have to unfortunately learn the hard way a lot of times is that when you prolong those injuries, instead of listening and tuning to your body and taking those proactive steps immediately, you're actually going to end up out of commission even longer, because not only might you get a recurring injury, but like you said, you're going to be 50% for 3 weeks versus just taking a couple days off in the moment, get back to 90% or 100%, and then you're back on the mats. It's like delaying this short-term gratification so that we can be in the sport a little bit longer. And like you said, the recovery time ends up being quicker. So we get back on the mats faster. Thus we improve our performance because we're showing up more often than less often.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I've been looking at recently. Just figuring out what kinds of things can get you to recover quicker. what things do we need to be doing as athletes so that you don't even have to take that much time off. You know, I've rarely had to take time off now from injuries recently because of my recovery routine is so strong.
I love that. And actually, I was going to ask you later, but this is the perfect time to ask it. In your, like with what you're doing, what you've integrated and have tried for yourself, what so far have been your top 3 recovery modalities that you feel support you in balancing the physical demands of jiu-jitsu that allow you to show up more consistently, that you've been doing often?
So I got into Wim Hof.
Amazing.
Yeah. So WIM is his first name, and then Hof, HOF. Because when I first heard his name, I had no idea, and I didn't even. It sounded like a curse word or something because his name is so unique. Um, he has 3 free videos actually on his website that I looked at, and so last September I actually hired a life coach for the first time, and he recommended Wim Hof. And I was like, I hate the cold. That's crap. I'm not doing that. You're insane. It's going to be winter soon. Like, why would I put myself in 30-degree water? And he was like, just do it. Just stop it. And I was like, all right, I can do it. Like, it's fine. And so I started slow, a couple minutes, or I'm sorry, a couple seconds, just arms in the cold shower. So every morning I go in my shower, I take a hot regular shower, and then I do my 3-minute cold shower. Aubrey Marcus talks about it as a power shower. He has a great book that I read as well that has given me a lot of recovery ideas. His is Own the Day, Own Your Life. And that book changed a lot that I do. And he talks about the power shower as well. And he talks about Wim Hof and the power of the shower, the breathing. He does conscious breathing. And then the other, there's a third thing that he does. I know he involves a lot of meditation. But the shower and the breathing are the big things that I have introduced for recovery.
Amazing.
Yeah, the cold shower, I'll either do the cold shower, the pool, or I go do cryotherapy once a week. I have a place about an hour away, and that gets to -220. And I do that for 3 minutes. And so one of those things is pretty much every day, unless I'm traveling and they can't get it cold enough. But even when I'm traveling, I'll go, if it's in the winter, I'll go inside and I'll jump in a river or I'll jump in a lake, whatever it is. So I try to keep that as part of my routine, or an ice bath. I know they make tanks now that you can like have in your house and get in. But cold, I would tell you, for mental benefits, for cardiovascular benefits, it constricts your blood vessels and it just brings your heart rate down. And Wim has proven that after 10 times of doing a cold shower, you can actually decrease your heart rate 15 to 30 beats per minute, like as a long-term effect. And so that has really helped, just with that and the breathing every day, have helped slow my heart rate and just help me get in the zone. So muscle recovery too for the cold showers. So if I have a bad neck, I'll just go and sit in that shower and let it beat on my neck for 3 minutes. And I'll come out and aside, mentally you're like, I'm going to go fuck shit up right now. Mentally you come out of that shower. I've got an accountability mirror too that has like all these things on it that I write. That's from David Goggins. I read his book as well, another must read. And he talks about putting things up on the mirror. He's more negative. Like he's more like, you suck, you did this, you can't run. Mine are more like, no excuses, be automatic. The greater the struggle, the greater the victory. I have like cool things on there. So I come out of my cold shower, bright red, frozen, and I look at that and, I say to myself, that's the hardest thing you're going to do today. You're a badass. Let's go. And so that has helped with that recovery, mental stuff. So I guess cold showers and breathing I'll put into one. Sauna is also phenomenal. I think the heat is a nice contrast. You're vasodilating. So even I've listened to a lot of podcasts about just if you have cardiovascular issues, or if you're, diabetic, peripheral vascular disease, and you get in a sauna and you do cold, you're right there helping your vascular system, right? You're dilating, you're constricting. And so I do that. And I think the sauna helps, again, recovery. You can talk about cutting weight as well and put the sauna in there in a safe way. But so those 2 things, and then sleep. I would say sleep is the third thing that I've done that's super important. We were discussing before, through residency and through everything I've done, sleep has always been on the back burner. And last year I finally made it a commitment to start sleeping my 7 to 8 hours and trying to get uninterrupted, which was unheard of for me probably in the past 14 years of my life. You're always anxious about, did I do the right thing for that patient? Who's going to call me and yell at me? And I've added magnesium, zinc, and CBD actually to my night kind of remedy cocktail, and a lavender diffuser, which I put on at night, and blue light blockers. So I have a
Oh my
light
God.
in the bed to block blue light. And then I make sure to turn my phone off at least 30 minutes, or not off, but I'm like, okay, the phone's done. It's time for journaling, for reading my personal development book, and for doing a nice, good sleep routine, my inversion table. And then often I'll do a visualization. Like if I have a competition coming up, I do a 7-minute guided visualization about winning. So I think those are probably the 3 big things that have helped with recovery.
Oh my gosh, we could just focus the whole episode on this because this is everything I preach about and more. And I absolutely love it. I love that I see myself in you in so many ways of doing all of the things to really, because you are very committed to optimizing your health and your well-being. And it really displays in what you just shared with, your recovery tools, but then optimizing your sleep and integrating all of those things to support even getting good sleep. That is so critical when it comes to improving your performance and letting your body restore and repair, which is ultimately going to help your recovery. And I love the shares you did for the recovery. Breath work is a huge thing that I teach, and I'm so adamant that athletes need to learn how to breathe. And I love that you were introduced to Wim Hof. He's so amazing. I've actually just recently, as of 3 weeks ago, started ice plunging. It was a huge fear of mine. I did everything recovery under the sun except that. And that's when I knew, Natalie, it's time to face your fear, because I'm always in it for the constant growth, constant evolution. And I was like, I am holding myself back by not addressing this. And it was terrifying, but I've been doing it. And like you said, I feel like even more superhuman afterwards. And it's been such an amazing thing to heal even minor bruising from jujitsu, just little, like you said, not even like tweaks, but just soreness. It's made such a difference. And I also have a sauna blanket that you may be interested in. It's a sauna blanket. I think it's like $600. So it is an investment. However, you can just lie in that 30 minutes to an hour, do your meditation, do your visualization in that as well, which is what I like to do as well. And that beautiful balance of the cold and the hot is such an amazing thing for recovery. So I am so happy that you mentioned that for recovery. I hope you guys take away 1 to 3 of these things and at least try them. Obviously breath work, little plug to check out the Breathwork Training Center. It's our membership site that literally is breath work for athletes. So you can learn how to increase your lung capacity, learn how to calm your competition nerves, increase your energy, improve your recovery, all of the things. And she's even more proof to check it out. And so that is so amazing. I love that you shared that. And I actually wanted to dive a little bit into more of your personal development journey and kind of share what motivated you to get into more of the holistic side of things and embark on your personal development journey.
Yeah, I love that. So I had never even thought of what personal development was until last September. I'm 33 years old. I turned 33 in September, and it was around that time where I was like, I hired the life coach. So kind of going back, I was in a very, very bad relationship around last summer. And it was with a guy who was enlisted, and, difficult military situation where he's very busy, difficult with communication, just it was very, very tough. And I was in a place where it was a one-sided relationship and the communication was horrendous. He ended up getting deployed, and again, just the communication continued on, obviously didn't change, it got worse. And after about 7 weeks of him being gone, I had pretty much a breakdown. It was 3 months of I was the lowest I've ever been, and due to a relationship, so I think a lot of people can probably attest to how that feels. And it's not about what he did, it's about how I internalized it, right? And it's about how I took it. And to me, I'm a big communicator. I go over and above and beyond, in my OR staff and everybody, they probably hate me because I communicate too much sometimes about things. But that's how I am. And, the relationship was just tearing me apart, and it was starting to leak into everything in life, jujitsu, work, I was unhappy. I wasn't sleeping. I just was going about my days with my head down. My whole staff, everybody close to me was worried about me. And then I had a friend actually say, because I had people suggest counseling and everything. And I was trying to get in with the counselor, but that's very challenging to get in with. They have wait lists and everything. And finally, I hit such a low. And my one friend said to me, why don't you try this life coach? And I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. I'm the lowest of the low. It can't make me worse. And so I ended up reaching out to this guy, Ray, and he's my current life coach now. I am so grateful for this human. We did a discovery call, and then I hired him, and we did hours and hours and hours of work, release work. It's called mental emotional release. There's something called neurolinguistic programming. You know about that. And we just incorporated all of this. And I still wasn't talking to this guy at the time because he was not telling me anything. I had no idea what was going on. And finally, Ray was like, all right, well, what are we gonna do about it? He might come back in January. We don't know. You want to wait? Because I had a lot of values that were like, I don't want to break up with this guy over the phone while he's deployed. I want to wait. I want to do it in person. You have all these inner voices and values that you wouldn't want to be done to you. But at some point, Ray just said, you're going to stay in this sad state until January. You think you can do that? All right, well, I'll be here for you, but you are not okay. And so finally I, with all the release work and everything that he helped me with, I finally said, that's it. It's over. Like he can't keep tearing me down like this. It's affecting everything. And I was actually in Las Vegas at a conference the weekend after my birthday in September, and he finally called. And I was actually in a Cirque du Soleil show. And I saw the call and I ran out. I stepped over everyone in that aisle. Like I must have hit 5 million people. I was like, I'm not missing this call. And with my life coach, we had planned what I was going to say. I had bullets ready to go. And I had visualized this breakup for weeks, waiting for him to call. And so it was on, because if I hadn't done all that, I probably would have chickened out and just said, okay, love you, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
So I did it, broke up with him. I said, I would be the greatest, military spouse ever. I'm committed, but this has to be a two-way street. It has to be a team. And he was like, all right, well, I got to go, whatever. It was not really the breakup you want, but that was it. It was like a 3-minute phone call. And then after that, I was in Las Vegas and I said, I've been wanting to compete for a long time. And I've been talking to my coaches. I was like, what if Masters Worlds is my first competition? They were like, well, I think you're insane. You should probably do some local tournaments first, but with work, my call schedule, different kinds of conferences I go to, I was like, that's the only one that works with my schedule. And it's 2 months from today in Las Vegas. And they were like, well, it's up to you. Like, we'll support you. And I signed up. I got home the next day and signed up. And then from that moment, like that breakup was just a release. And literally it was like a transformation, and everything finally, all the work I did with my life coach was like, came to fruition. And yeah, it was sad, and it's a breakup. It's tough, but I was a new woman at that point. And that's when I started on this journey of audibles all the time, personal development books, making myself a better person, working on my sleep. I think with the life coach, plus a lot of the books that I've been reading have been a huge benefit to me. I drive an hour to jujitsu each way when I train, because the gym that, I may live in the country. And so the good gym that I like is in a more of a city. And so when I'm driving, I used to listen to music and just be in my mind. And now I'm just listening to books and podcasts and becoming a better person. So personal development before that was not something I ever looked at. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm developed. Like, I'm good. I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I kick ass, but really I never kicked ass. Like, now I'm fucking kicking ass. After all of that I went through, that relationship, I wouldn't trade for the world, because it made me who I am today. And I'm such a better person. And now I'm helping other people do this. I have friends at the gym that are like, we cold plunged, we finally did it. Like, we heard you talking about it, and we finally, like, we couldn't keep hearing you tell us to go do it. And now after the gym, I'll have all my friends, they'll like go to the pool together, and they'll go plunge in in whoever's pool. And so I'm making waves, and it's not just about me, it's about everyone that I'm helping.
I love that so, so much. I love that so much. Your journey and your commitment to yourself is so inspiring. You know, what you've been through is very difficult, but I know 100% so many people can relate to being in a toxic relationship or just not the most supportive relationship and having a lot of guilt around leaving, but ultimately it causes some suffering in your own health and your own life. And at some point, the question becomes, how much of the suffering are you willing to tolerate? Or can there be a different way? And you are a testament to really just overcoming that fear and just diving into really just bettering yourself. And that's amazing. And I'd love to know, if you can recall, I'm sure you can, what difference did you notice in your performance before and after embarking on your personal development journey? So obviously it's a relatively new venture for you over the less than a year, perhaps, of personal development, but obviously you were able to win worlds. So I'm curious, in your performance, obviously with these new mindsets, perhaps that you've adopted, the new mentality towards maybe training and recovery, what did you notice as the biggest differences before integrating personal development and after in regards to your performance?
So before, you would show up and go to sleep, have crappy sleep, wake up and just kind of go through the routine. Like, this is what I have to do today. I have to go to work. I have to go train. Now I wake up and it's like, all right, I've got so much to do today. It's going to be a great day. I've got my morning flow that I do. I do like a little movement, Becoming a Supple Leopard, great book. So I do like my movements and I'll do like some yoga in the sauna. I'm excited for that morning routine, doing a little bit of like lifting, whatever I'm going to do, even if it's just small, walking the dog, and then my cold shower. And then I'm ready for the day. So like, instead of walking into the office exhausted and just like rolling out of bed and walking the dog and trying to just chug coffee, like I pound some water with lemon and salt and I get ready to go in the morning. Then I have my bullet coffee, my breakfast. And after that cold shower, I get to the office and I'm freezing. Like, I'm literally shivering the first like hour or so in the office, but I'm like, let's go. Like, who are we helping today? What are we doing? And then I get to go to jujitsu at night and I get to figure out what I'm working on that day. I'm watching a lot more jujitsu at home. I'm doing a lot more and I have more time than I ever did. So that's a big thing people tell me. They're like, I don't have time for all that. I'm like, you think I do? And guess what? I do. And I have more time now. And I don't know how, but something I'm doing has created all of this opportunity and time. So I think just the mindset of how I wake up now versus how I used to. And probably so many people just walk through their life of, I have to do this. I have to go to work. Okay. I come home. I hang out with the kids. I'm like, and people aren't present either. I think I have more presence now. I'm working on it. That's one of my big goals, is to be more present. And I think meditation is helping that. Breathing is helping that. I have a ways to go on that, because, the mind does drift, but at least I catch myself now and I bring myself back to the moment. And so jujitsu is one of the things that I've always been present for. When you slap hands and start, your mind's not drifting because you're going to get choked.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. So you're only there. And my mind's absent when I'm rolling, aside from when I might try to be working on a move or whatever it is. But my performance has just skyrocketed, escalated. And like we were talking about before, I'm 33 and I'm in the best shape of my life. My injuries are down. I have more energy than I've ever had in my life. And I do attest, I think that the personal development journey and my mindset shift has just created this opportunity. Like, it's just, everybody says now to me, I've had a couple of people say, you've reached your destination. I'm like, no, bullshit. I have not reached my destination. I'm skyrocketing now. I was leveled out. I was just dull before. Still people say orthopedic surgeon, jujitsu, all these things that you've accomplished with your life, but that was nothing. I wasn't actually living it out. And now I'm truly living it and like helping people.
Yeah, really embodying it. And there's a couple of things I wanted to extract and touch on that you mentioned that's really important when it comes to the mental shift. Is there are many of us that get stuck in that mindset of have to, and that have to is such a stagnant energy behind it. And a big shift that you made, I really wanted to highlight, so important, and something I talk about often, is shifting from a have to a get to mindset. Because what that does is it really shifts us into a place of gratitude and appreciation for what we have available to us, and shifting our energy in what the energy and intention we have going into the task, right? I mention it all the time that like if we have to wash the dishes or wash our gis, you can do it in a stressed out mindset, or you can do it in a blessed mindset. You know, that you have that opportunity, and that alone really, really helps in shifting this kind of drudgery and this begrudging mentality that you have these things to do versus being blessed that these are the things that you get to do. And being present for it allows for more richness in what you do. And one of the things that you had mentioned that I wanted to speak to secondly was you aligning yourself with your healing and your personal development, coming more into the richness of life and embodying this better and higher version of you has allowed for a more increased stream of well-being in your body, which allows for more flow. So to answer your question where you were kind of like, I'm not sure how I have more energy, more time, right? But somehow there's more time. It's because you've streamlined your process to avoid anything that causes resistance in your life, and really only allowing, welcoming in things that make you feel good. And when we do that and we align ourselves with what makes us feel good, there's no resistance. So things move quicker. So we become more productive. We become literally in line with the energy and how it's moving. And obviously this translates in jiu-jitsu. When you are trying to do a sweep, you're sweeping towards the way where the energy makes sense to take them. You're not going to go against the resistance. If their weight's leaning forward, you're not going to try to push them backwards. You're going to try to bring them forward. That less resistance has a better outcome. And so that's how we get to create more time when the hours of the day don't change, is we increase our energy management. And that's what I feel that you've really done, is you've prioritized your life and literally consciously created your reality to have better energy management, which ultimately allows you to do more things that make you feel better. And you have the same amount of time as everyone else. And that's such a huge piece that I teach on all the time, is it's not a time management issue. It's an energy management issue. Where are you placing your energy? And if it's causing you to have life sucked out of you, then that's what you need to address. It's realigning your energy with what's going to make you feel good and what's going to be towards the vision that you have for yourself. And gaining clarity on that vision is always the first step. But once you have it, it becomes clear on what needs to go and what gets to stay.
Yeah. And talking about, you mentioned a vision, right? So I think your vision is so important. And my coach, Ray, he has this whole platform. It's called Revealing Your Why. And it kind of, I went through it. It's a couple of hours, and you essentially pick out like a statement that's your why, your reason for doing things, your reason for living, right? Because if you don't have that vision of yourself and that why you wake up every morning, that why you do everything, if you don't have that, then you're just waking up and going through motions, and that's not sustainable. So like if you were to come up and say, okay, today I'm going to work out for 30 minutes, I'm going to eat clean and this, that, and the other, and you tell yourself that, what's that going to last? A couple days, couple weeks, maybe 30 days if you're lucky. But if you have a vision, it's sustainable, right? So I've been doing this for 6 months now. And after our worlds, I was like, oh shit, I hope I keep this going. You know, I had a real fear. I was like, I have this goal, I'm motivated for it, but what's going to happen after worlds? And I had this why, and I can share it with you. Like I have a little statement. My why is to be automatic and compete like the badass I am, thereby inspiring the world. And so that's my why. And that took a while for me to create. Like I've still been tweaking it for months. And that's finally like the one that I came up with. And that even changed recently. Just that, you know, my friend always tells me, you're so automatic, like you just do it. I'm like, yeah, because I have a purpose and a reason why I'm doing it. I'm not just waking up and saying, okay, I have a checklist. The checklist is out the door because I know what I'm waking up for.
Yes. Oh, so good. I just got chills. That is so good. Knowing what you're waking up for breeds just so much clarity in our life. And I am so happy that you've come to this point where you've really found this for yourself, because this is such an inspiring story. And I'm so happy for the people and the listeners listening to this right now. And I hope this really gives you permission to realize that she's as amazing and awesome and badass as she is, also just another human being. Right. And so this also gets to be your reality if you choose. because one of the biggest things that Megan hasn't necessarily said, but it's very evident, is all she's doing is choosing. She's choosing a new reality for herself. She's choosing habits that she wants to adopt. She's choosing actions she wants to take that are in alignment with her vision. So it really comes down to getting out of the autopilot and really getting clear on what's your vision so that you can make a conscious choice, because it's in our choices that dictate the quality of our life. And you guys know that I say this a lot. So she's just a beautiful testament to that. And I wanted to also ask a couple more questions to you. One, what advice would you give for athletes who desire to become a world champion, but also want to maintain balance in their life?
Well, I guess I'm a good example of that, right? I have a full career. I don't have a family, but I do have my dog, who I love very much. He's like my child. So, as far as, I don't know that I fully believe in a balance. I don't know. I think it's a tricky word. And, I think you have to do what makes you happy. And so especially in the world of today, being a woman, there's a lot of society, puts a lot of things on us, if you have kids and, taking care of things around the house and this, that, and the other, but women have jobs too. I'm in a male dominated job, an orthopedic surgeon, and I make time for the things that are important for me. And it's in a stress-free way. You have to love what you do too. If jujitsu is a chore for you and you don't love it, then maybe we need to find something that's the right thing for you. Don't force yourself to do something that you hate, because then you're not going to want to go. We were very fortunate. You and we found jujitsu and we love it. And it's such a passion. I have to often take myself away from jujitsu videos and studying to go read my personal development book or go read for a case, so I came up with a whole strategy with my life coach. Okay, you read 5 pages of your book and then you do 10 minutes of jujitsu videos, like a 2-year-old to come up with this agenda. But it helps. I do, I read a research paper. I start an abstract of a paper I'm writing and publishing. And then I can go watch 10 minutes of jujitsu. So that's like my prize,
Yeah.
I would say you have to just love what you do. If you don't love it and you don't have that why, that reason, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing advice. And kind of additionally to this, I'm curious, how has your own journey shaped the way that you work with your clients as an orthopedic surgeon?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because it really has changed a lot. I've never been the type of doctor to just push meds. I know there's a lot of doctors out there that are just like, here's this, here's an anti-inflammatory, here's a narcotic, here's that. I think I give probably the lowest number of narcotics of a lot of people I've seen. I just don't believe in it. Even some of my surgical patients don't get narcotics, like for more minor procedures. I do believe in anti-inflammatories. I think there's a place for it. But I have a big speech with my patients when they have arthritis or whatever the case is, the pain that they have that's caused by inflammation. And I talk to them about what they put into their body. And it ends up being like a 15-minute discussion of me talking about diet, and what they're eating, especially in the South, where it's a lot of fried foods, a lot of fats, a lot of carbohydrates. I want them eating more fats. I want them eating more protein and good quality stuff, because a lot of the stuff that you get at the supermarket really isn't very good. So half of my doctor's visit as an orthopedic surgeon ends up being what you're putting in and talking about anti-inflammatory foods, inflammatory foods. And most people, once I establish a rapport with them, and, I'm not just trying to tell them that they're fat, because that's how some people interpret it. Unfortunately, I've gotten Google reviews that are like, waste of time. She told me I needed to lose weight. I'm like, okay. Like, yes, I probably did tell you that, but I told you that in a nice way. And I told you that in a way that it was because it's affecting your body. It's causing a lot of inflammation in your body, and just changing your diet, adding water, taking out sugary drinks, the amount of like soda is probably, Coca-Cola and all these industries. If I could just make them illegal, I would, because just that sugar and all that stuff going into people's bodies is making the knee arthritis worse. And I've had some patients come back to me and say, my knee pain is gone. Like, I changed my diet. Not all, I'm not saying it's a cure all. You still have arthritis. But I do really have a huge discussion with them. A lot of patients come in too, and I just talk about plunging. I'm like, well, you could jump in your pool, it's 20 degrees outside. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And then I started explaining science behind it. I started talking about cardiovascular benefits, muscle recovery, and the mental toughness aspect of it and how good you feel coming out. And then something clicks and they're like, huh, especially athletes. I'm talking more about, I have a lot of obese patients, diabetic patients that I need to have this discussion with, but athletes too, athletes, especially young ones. I have a lot of schools I cover around here, high school and college level. And, they'll go eat like Carl's Jr. or they'll go to the Waffle House because they think that they're an athlete and they can do that. And I'm like, why don't you change?
Oh goodness.
Yep. And you'll see how much it improves. So that's been a huge part of my rant now to patients about diet, cold therapy, sauna, exercise. And, a big thing too here with the obesity and the struggles here is money, right? Because a lot of times food does cost more. But I just read recently, Dr. Fung's book on fasting, which is an excellent read. And I talk about that now with, not that I'm not super qualified to do that. I read a book, but I can bring it up as an option and say, hey, why don't you go talk to the dietitian? And I have a good relationship with a dietitian in town. And I'm like, why don't you talk to them and maybe do a fasting under medical guidance by somebody that's qualified?
I love
so that. Yeah. So that book is just phenomenal and it's free, right? Fasting's free. So, but for the athletes, fasting probably isn't the best route, especially if you're training for a competition. And I actually talked about this with Kyle Kingsbury. He's a big, he's a UFC he was a UFC fighter and he's one of my role models. And I talked to him about this. I was like, I recently did the Atlanta Open, IBJJF 2 weekends ago. And I was wondering about fasting and he talks about it too. And I was like, hey, what do you think about is the role for a female? I weigh 115 pounds. I'm training, on and off for tournaments. And he's like, you should not be doing that while you're competing. You have to eat, you have to get your calories. You have to make sure that you're not depleted.
That's excellent advice. That's excellent advice. It's, I talk about that, but honestly, I haven't heard many people talk about that. Those who talk about intermittent fasting, it's often like this, sometimes, anything going too far in one direction isn't good, right? The extremism of it, but really understanding how our bodies need to be fueled as athletes is so critical versus just kind of throwing out the next new term of fasting. Although there are many benefits, it's like, is that good for us with what we're doing? So I absolutely love that you got that advice. That makes me so happy that there's people in the industry who are doing their research and really focusing on the well-being.
Yeah. And I think fasting has a role. Like I did a 72-hour fast and it was great. Like it's spiritual, it's mental, and your body turns from sugar to ketones and the brain just functions on it at a different level. Like I've heard people doing long-term fasting that they just have this like spirituality and it's this high and they're thinking, they're cognitively in a different space because the ketones are being used by the brain instead of sugar. Right. So I did the 3-day fast and, I got a little bit of it. And that was the extent of what I did. I'm definitely considering longer day fasts. Dr. Fung talks about the longest fast was 386 days. And that was with supplements, like, with electrolytes, probably some bone broth and medically supervised. But that was a different patient. Like he had a lot of weight that he wanted to take off, a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah.
He lost that all and was like literally his blood levels were checked. He was great the entire time. So 386 days, right? That wouldn't be right for you or me. We're small, but this guy had a purpose and it was medically supervised. So I think the power of fasting could be great. I think with athletes, it's a little bit trickier. And I think intermittent fasting and the shorter fastings might be good, and you could talk about gut health and all these things. And I think that book is a great read if anybody's interested. But as athletes, we need to make sure we're fueling ourselves, especially when we're competing. And Paul Chek is another role model of mine, and he is 60 something, I think, and he's still lifting and working out like a maniac and just killing it. And he does a 24-hour fast every Sunday. And so that's fascinating, but that's his rest day. So, so that was pretty cool for me to learn about.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you've dropped so many amazing books. I'm going to have you send them over to me so I can put them in the show notes for everyone. I definitely recommend you check it out. Books are my favorite way to absorb knowledge aside from podcasts, because guess what, guys? It's free. Take advantage of the free information. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. And it's just a little bit more knowledge that you have in your arsenal to resource. And it's just a little bit more empowering. So take advantage of the free information, and I want to ask you a couple more questions. This is a little bit off the topic, but because you did invest in yourself, it's important that we talk about this, because this is a big belief of mine. As athletes, we have to make investments in ourselves to become the best that we desire. And so you making an investment in your life coach and maybe other things that you had mentioned that you've invested in, what advice would you give to someone who wants to maybe invest in themselves, that was something that you did for yourself? What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about investing in themselves? Like, what was maybe the thought process that you had, and maybe not just your first investment, but what you continually to invest in?
Well, I would say the first thing is stop making excuses about it, because everybody has an excuse about why they can't invest in themselves. Well, my kids need me. Well, my spouse needs me. Well, work is more important right now. I'll do it eventually. And you're not going to do it. So that's kind of the biggest thing. And you can't help everybody else until you help yourself. So for me, when I was at that low point, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't help anybody, even at work, I was just miserable. My cognitive capacity was probably low because I was in a rut. So I needed to fix myself and I needed to figure my shit out. And so that is when I finally, probably a little too late. I should have done it earlier, but I did it. And I'm proud of myself for taking the step. And, a life coach is not cheap, but it's the best money I've spent, because I'm in such a great place now. And I'm helping so many more people, not just at work, not just as a surgeon, but everybody around me feels my energy now. And, I've brought so many people with me. And, and that being said, I've also probably lost some people, because this new me is, throwing off other people's values. And they're like, well, wait a minute, what happened to this old you? And it's going to happen, but,
yeah.
And a lot of people are coming with me though. They like this new me. And a lot of people say, have brought it up to me about how great it is. And I'm thinking more clearly. I'm just helping so many more people than I helped ever, even as an orthopedic surgeon and also in my personal life. So I would say if anybody's interested in getting into it, I can give you my number. We can talk. I love bringing people up with me and giving strategies, giving recommendations for how to start the process. Even if you might not be able to hire a life coach. And there's a lot of other opportunities within that are more affordable that you can kind of start on the path. And you always have friends and people like me that, I'm not an expert by any means, but I can help guide and be there as a support for anybody that wants it.
That's such a beautiful invitation. So guys, take her up on that offer, because she has a lot to offer. I highly value life experience. So I love that you are in the trenches doing the work and being the embodiment of what you want in your life. And that's the best type of leader, is leading through example. And I really see that in you. And I'd love to know, in saying that, how can people connect with you to just kind of hook up and get to know you a little bit more?
Yeah, we can put my Instagram I just recently made it public. I was private for a while. My mom was like, you're an orthopedic surgeon and sometimes you post crazy things. I'm like, I don't post, it's jujitsu. I have a black eye or this or whatever. And my patients love it, because I'm relatable. It's like, oh, look at this badass. Like, she's out there competing and doing things just like us. She's not just sitting there like telling us what to do without actually doing the work herself. So I made it public recently. So we can put it in the notes, but it's Dr.Jujitsu 14. And I recently changed that name. It used to just be my name, but I was like, okay, doctor in jujitsu, that's me. Like that's who I am. So anybody can follow me and reach out. I can put my email and number down there too.
Amazing. Awesome. So we will definitely put our Instagram on there so you can check her out. And I wanted to finally ask our little wrap-up question of I'm sure this evolves over time, but what right now is your favorite takedown and submission?
So my favorite takedown is a single leg. That's kind of my go-to. And in my last competition, it was the same in Atlanta Open. It was the same girl, Valerie, who I faced in the finals at Worlds as well. And so it was awesome to see her and compete. And we have a great relationship. You know, when you slap hands, it's on, but
Yeah.
we have such a good relationship outside of the mats after competing twice now. And she studied me so hard. And I was like, well, my game is single leg and top and pressure, and I'm going to do my thing. And she was just shutting it all down. So now I have to figure out my single leg and get better at it. But that's my favorite of all time. I just think there's a lot of finishes to it. And you know, I'm a back taker as well. So you can kind of spin around to the back from a failed single leg as well. And then my favorite submission, because I do enjoy the back, and I've been working on my bolo game a lot to try to get to the back as much as I can. That's where I prefer to be. So bow and arrow choke is for sure in gi would be my favorite choke.
Amazing. Amazing. I love, love, love it. All right, everyone. This has been such an amazing conversation. I hope that you've gathered so many amazing nuggets. I know that I have. She's such an inspiration. Definitely give her a follow. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please, please, please share this episode with friends, family, teammates. You know, she's very relatable. So we've all been in her boat in some way or another. So whenever we can share each other's stories and create more proof that there gets to be another way, and we are consciously in control of our life, you know, I really encourage you to share it, because I believe that we get to empower each other and help lift each other up. And that's her mission. That's my mission. And we get to do this together. So please share this episode. Give us a rating on Spotify if you love this episode. We'll put everything that we talked about in the show notes. And I'm so excited for the next one. Thank you, Megan, for being here, and we'll see you later.
All right. Take care. Thanks.